Grew up as a kid being interested in this. You ended up working on a company that's sending people to space all the time now. Is that something you've ever wanted to do?
Absolutely.
Yeah. I assume you're not like the 6-minute edge of space kind of guy. I would imagine you want a couple laps around the moon or something like that.
I want to land on the moon.
You want to land on the moon?
I would really, it's like my bucket list item would be to ride an electric dirt bike on the moon. Like jump some craters, you know?
I feel like that is what should happen for Tom Mueller.
It should absolutely happen.
What would you think if I told you that my dream is to ride an electric dirt bike on the moon? Yes, on the moon, and I seriously think it is possible. Would you think I am crazy? Would you stop watching this video? Would you call for the police to arrest me? Or would you wait to see if I'm joking? But if instead of me, the person telling you this is Tom Mueller, the father of the Merlin engine, one of the main contributors to SpaceX success, and one of the best aerospace engineers ever, what would you think? Is he crazy? Or are you the crazy one for not believing in him? Would you think he has a slight chance to do it? Let's deep dive to see if we need to call Tom's doctor to change his pills, or if instead we want to ask him to bring us with him to the moon. Tom was born in Ohio 62 years ago, so if he wants to ride a bike on the moon, I would say he has about 15 years to do it. When he was a kid, he wanted to be a mechanic. However, when a teacher asked him if he'd rather be the guy designing a plane or fixing a plane, he decided to be an engineer, and it seems like it was a good choice. After many decades in the industry, we can say that he has accomplished a few goals and that he has had a good amount of success. After 15 years working as an aerospace engineer, he finally met Elon in the early 2000s, and also all of Elon's dreams of colonizing Mars and revolutionizing the space industry. Although Tom was not crazy or visionary enough to believe all of Elon's ideas, he was crazy enough to be SpaceX employee number 1 and start building what at the end would become the Merlin engine, the workhorse of the Falcon family at SpaceX. And at the end, it seems like Elon's dreams and ambitions were not that crazy after all.
Elon always knew that we were going to be super successful. Like he always said, someday our name's going to be like as big as Boeing's. And I'm like, yeah, all right. Holy shit, he was right.
He spent almost 2 decades at SpaceX, and after a lot of work and a shit ton of money, he decided to start his own company that builds space transport systems and wants to send landers to the moon and Mars. But apart from landing machines, he also wants to land himself on the moon. Yes, what a surprising dream for an engineer that builds rockets for a living. This is probably one of the top list dreams that a lot of people had for a long time, but until now it was impossible to say the least, unless you were an American military prodigy that happened to be selected for the Apollo program.
Hippity hoppity, hippity hoppity, hippity hopping over hill and dale.
But now things are starting to change. Space is no longer a government-exclusive zone. New players are starting to arise, and it won't be long until we see space tourists all over the place. It may seem like we are far away from that spacefaring future, but in fact it is already here. We have been sending private astronauts to space for the past years, and they won't be the only ones. In the next 5 to 10 years, we'll start seeing the first private space stations, and going to space will start to be more and more common. It will take many more years until people like you and me can go to space without having to sell our kidney, but Tom is a wealthy man, he should have a chance if he wants. But one thing is going to space, he could probably already do that. Another different thing is going to the moon and landing there. It is a giant leap, in terms of technology needed, time and resources, in a similar way as the difference between suborbital and orbital flights. For this, Tom will need something more than just a lot of money, because there are things that money cannot buy. Just look at the US Congress that will spend around $93 billion in the Artemis program by 2025, without even landing one time. If Tom wants to land on the moon, while he can still walk on his own, he will need some technological and economic advances that are not easy to do in 15 years, but that are not impossible either. For starters, you need to revolutionize the space industry once again, and the appropriate way to do it is with a fully and rapidly reusable vehicle like Starship. We've already seen what this rocket can do for the future of spaceflight, but summarizing, it will lower the cost to send things to space by a lot. Because you cannot go to the moon in the same way as we did during the Apollo program, at least not sustainably. It is too expensive, and there is no real incentive. We cannot send a single ship and bring them back with no more than moon rocks. It's not viable. It would be a waste of money just to have a pretty picture and a win over your political rivals, but not something that adds value or that contributes significantly to any new technology. We need to go there with a reason that pays for the mission. There are a lot of possible options, like space tourism, mining, new science, exploration. How much money would you pay to go there? How many new things could we learn if we had a scientific base on the moon? Could we use the moon resources to build satellites for Earth or to build telescopes there? But all of these reasons are not feasible as long as we don't start lowering the cost to go to orbit, because right now it is pretty expensive, like $50 million at minimum to go to low Earth orbit. Imagine going to the moon. That's why Starship is so crucial, and not only Starship, but also all the new vehicles that will appear once the access to space is not that expensive and exclusive. Because it is not possible to have a sustained presence on the moon without having a sustained presence all over space. It will be like sending people to the Antarctica to ride a bike before having scientific bases there and before having different ways to transport people and cargo. At least you need a permanent moon base, a cheaper way to send people there, and also a sustainable space economy that helps all of these moon dreams to happen. We need to have something to do on the moon, things that can only be done there, and that can't help finance the big cost to have a permanent presence. One example would be using the moon resources to build things in space, things that can only be built in microgravity or on the moon, and that ideally will stay there. Things like space telescopes, space stations, or as Tom suggests, computer clusters that allow us to train big AI models and send their results back to Earth.
I really want to see like manufacturing in space, like what Varda's doing, and I think at some point they're going to start thinking like, why are we lifting all of our raw materials from the gravity well of Earth up when it's literally like 22 times easier to bring it from the surface of the moon? The amount of power to run compute by like 2045 will be like the base power of the planet right now. The drain on resources is so high, you need to put that compute in space and just use the power of the sun in space, making the solar cells in space, and do compute in space and just beam the results down.
Yeah.
So I think that's like a really good use of space to help save the planet.
There are many things to do in space, and many more that will appear once we start exploring it. In the same way that the internet started as a digital copy of the physical world, but now it has become much more than that. Unless we go to space usually, and we do work there and we create new necessities and solve existing problems, we will not be able to accomplish all of these science fiction dreams, and we will feel stuck in a sad future that nothing resembles the stories that you read when you were a child. Let's look at Starlink as an example, the satellite constellation that SpaceX is deploying to provide internet all around the world. They are not doing it for the sake of sending satellites into space, they are doing it because it makes sense. It is cheaper than bringing fiber to everywhere, and the 2 million users that they have right now prove that it is something needed. It solves existing problems and it adds value to everyone. But it will not be enough with more advanced space rockets and useful things to do in space. If Tom wants to go to the moon in the next 15 years, and if anyone else wants to follow him, we will also need a big and solid Earth economy before we can start building one on the moon. Because it would be not desirable to be sending people to the moon while you have a lot of problems here on Earth. The Soviets already tried this and didn't go very well. And that's the most important requirement. We all need to be richer, we all need to produce more things, to have more capabilities and to be able to spend more resources on this type of adventures. Wealth is not a zero-sum game. We can all have more of everything, and that is the key factor if you want to set foot on the moon, if you want to colonize our solar system, or if you want to explore the entire galaxy. We need to solve first the more imminent problems, we need to have all our basic necessities covered. We need all countries to be as rich as the US, all people to have as many options as we have in the West, where everyone has access to all knowledge, where everyone can pursue their dreams, and where everyone can contribute as much as possible to the progress of mankind. And we can do it. The internet is the answer. It's the place where all knowledge is stored and shared, and that everyone connected to it has the potential to learn anything he wants, and to accomplish any goal that he has. Going to the moon is just the consequence of this incredible tool that is the internet. It is the natural evolution when we share all of our information and when we work together instead of stepping on each other. You, me, and anyone else can accomplish this and any other dream that we have. We just need to stop wasting our time and to learn how to use the tools that we have at our disposal. And maybe, someday we also have a chance to ride an electric dirt bike on the moon. Take care and learn more.